Apple just unveiled its flagship, the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and it is blowing minds all over the tech world. But how does it compare to the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, which sits on top as the king of the Android phones? Which one is worth the upgrade? Prepare yourself for the ultimate face-off. But first, a little housekeeping. If you're excited to see this final showdown, then go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Starting with the design, the iPhone 15 Pro Max has a titanium frame with a glass back and a square camera block in the corner. At the front, it has the dynamic island on top of the screen, housing its front-facing camera and Face ID components. The Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra also has a glass back, but with an aluminum frame, and it also has a very different camera design on the back, with the lenses rising individually out of the rear rather than having a distinct housing. The S23 Ultra also has a much smaller cutout in the screen, housing only a punch-hole camera. The 15 Pro Max has rounded off edges as compared to the S23 Ultra's squared off edges. However, the titanium frame makes the 15 Pro Max slightly lighter and more comfortable to hold. The S23 Ultra has a significant advantage in design, the built-in stylus. Business and productivity users can use the S Pen to take notes or interact with files and PDFs. Also, Apple has finally given up on the Lightning port, so both the S23 Ultra and the 15 Pro Max now sport a USB-C port. Aside from the port change, the 15 Pro Max has also ditched the old mute switch and replaced it with a customizable action button. Both phones have an IP68 rating for dust and water resistance. However, the 15 Pro Max is water resistant up to 6 meters, as compared to 1.5 meters with the S23 Ultra. As for their screens, the 15 Pro Max has a 6.7-inch 2796 by 1290 OLED display with 460 pixels per inch and a peak brightness of 2000 nits. The S23 Ultra has a slightly larger 6.8-inch AMOLED screen with a slightly higher resolution of 3088 by 1440. With 500 pixels per inch, it is also marginally sharper. But the S23 Ultra's peak brightness is lower at 1750 nits. Its screen is also slightly curved, whereas the 15 Pro Max is flat. Both displays have an adaptive refresh rate of 120 Hz. However, the S23 Ultra has a 240 Hz touch sampling rate in game mode. Now, coming to the cameras. The 15 Pro Max has a 48 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, and a 12 megapixel periscope, offering 5x optical zoom. The S23 Ultra, meanwhile, offers a 200 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, a 10 megapixel telephoto with 3x optical zoom, and a 10 megapixel periscope with a 10x optical zoom. The S23 Ultra has more cameras and far more megapixels. It can also optically zoom further and to 2 different distances. However, in direct comparison, the color reproduction and the sharpness of photos are better in the 15 Pro Max. The macros are also better, and the skin tones are more natural. Although in low light and night photography, the S23 Ultra is still unbeatable. The camera app is also more deep and versatile in the S23 Ultra. Both phones can also record video in 4K quality up to 60 frames per second, but the S23 Ultra can additionally record in 8K quality at up to 30 frames per second. However, the iPhone is still the video king, with even the 14 Pro Max being superior to the S23 Ultra with better dynamic range, more detail, and clearer footage at night. The 15 Pro Max further increases the gap. Now, moving on to performance. Apple has again pushed the envelope with its latest Apple Silicon, the A17 Pro, which is based on TSMC's 3nm technology. It has a 6-core CPU, 6-core GPU, and a twice as fast 16-core neural engine, making it 10% faster than the A16 Bionic. The 15 Pro Max is capable of 4x faster ray tracing for better rendering while running graphics-heavy tasks. It's the first device in the smartphone industry to run full versions of console games like Resident Evil 4. Meanwhile, the S23 Ultra is powered by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip and is built on TSMC's 4nm technology. It is the fastest mobile CPU for Android smartphones. In Geekbench, the 15 Pro Max scored 2846 and 7024 in single-core and multi-core performance, while the S23 Ultra scored 1964 and 5215 in the same tests. Also, in contrast to the 8GB RAM in the 15 Pro Max, Samsung offers 2 RAM options for the S23 Ultra, 8GB and 12GB. Now, playing heavy games requires a good battery life, and the 15 Pro Max impresses with up to 29 hours for video playback, while the S23 Ultra follows closely at 26 hours. As for audio playback, the 15 Pro Max delivers up to 95 hours, slightly overshadowed by the S23 Ultra's commendable 99 hours. However, the iPhone has a slight edge in conserving battery life given the A17 Pro chip's efficiency. On the other hand, when it comes to charging speeds, the S23 Ultra holds a distinct advantage. It supports up to 45-watt charging in comparison to the 15 Pro Max's 20-watt. Also, both phones support wireless charging at up to 15 watts, and the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra additionally offers reverse wireless charging at 4.5 watts, so you can use it as a wireless charger to slowly juice up other devices. But how much do these phones cost? The iPhone 15 Pro Max comes at $1199 for the 256GB model, $1399 for the 512GB build, and $1599 for the top 1TB model, while the S23 Ultra currently costs $1099.99 for the 256GB option, $1279.99 for the 512GB build, and $1519.99 for the 1TB build. Now comes the big question: which one should you buy? While the iPhone 15 Pro Max is overall better, it is important to note that it is a brand new phone, whereas the S23 Ultra is already 7 months old. The new S24 Ultra is coming in February next year, so if you don't need a phone right now, you could consider waiting until then. And once the S24 Ultra launches, the price of the S23 Ultra will likely drop to about $800, similar to the drop that we've seen with the S22 Ultra. Ultimately, the choice is yours. So which phone will be your next upgrade? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.